everyone. Technology uh, does work most of the times, but it also, gives way when we really need it the most. So we will definitely wait for Principal Ma'am to get back. Meanwhile, let us start today's webinar discussion because I know there are many interesting questions that I have for the panelists, and I'm sure all of you also have. And we have a deadline of finishing it by 1, so do not want to delay it further. Let me quickly introduce today's panelists. We have with us Gopal Iyer, as ma'am was introducing. He is he's from EY, EY GDS Gig program leader, a seasoned talent leader with over 17 years of experience working with large multinational organizations across various industries and geographies. And currently he leads the Gig program that has a specific focus on attracting and engaging with people for gig assignments at EY. So I have lots of questions on what this means for him in today's session. Welcome, Gopal.
Thank you.
We have Gautam Chetty as our next panelist. He's the India hiring lead for Maersk Global Services Center. He's a human resources professional with a background in leading recruiting teams, highly motivated by having a strategic seat at the table to influence clients on how to build the best teams. Also looking forward to hearing from him on various aspects of how hiring really happens in today's world. The third panelist we have is Mrinalini Nayak. She is the APAC Recruitment Marketing Manager at Conferry on behalf of HPE. She's an HR career distinguished. She has had an HR career distinguished by exceptional hard work, consciousness, integrity, commended performance, and proven results. A performance-driven recruiting, marketing, and digital media evangelist with over 14 years of reputation to launch, grow, and create talent trends with profitable and sustainable market leadership and implementation of innovative path-taking initiatives. Welcome, Mrinalini and Gautam. And I'm your moderator for today. My name is Neeraja Ganesh. I currently am working as the Director of Relationships at National Education Society of Karnataka. National College Basunari is one of the institutions under NES. And my primary role is to focus on building the industry academia connect so that we could look at the curriculum and other aspects of skill building, which will help our students to be industry ready as they graduate out of the college. So without further delay, let us get on with today's conversation. And I thought let me, start it in a storytelling mode because all of us have heard, our parents and our grandparents say, in our days, it would be like this. And I realized that I have, reached that stage when I am narrating stories like that in my days. So in my days when I actually, was trying to move from my first job into the second job, first anyways, I was picked up from campus. What did I do in terms of getting myself another job? Because I'm talking about the pre-internet era, so I'm quite ancient that way. I used to look up the newspapers, and I am an IT professional, technology professional. In those days, we used to call it computers, and that's the best we could call it. Didn't have a tech term then. So I used to look up the newspapers and say, okay, is there any company hiring for computer jobs? There would be 3 or 4 in the newspapers I would scan, and then there was 1 or 2 magazines, those who may remember, it was called Data Quest. I don't even know whether it exists today. So to look at computer-related jobs. There would be 3 or 4, and my skills would not match what was required, but I would apply. Because I didn't know what else to do and how else to do it. So I would find that address and I would apply and I would send my bio data, which used to be Xeroxed. I would have multiple copies Xeroxed and kept it with me. And then I would go to the post office, pick a stamp, put it in an envelope, post it, and come back home. And I'm very meticulous. So I had a diary in which I would write on which date to which company and the address, what post I applied for. Or maybe there was no post, I just sent it. And given that there were only 3 or 4 such companies who would look for computer professionals, I also applied to all of the companies who didn't even have computer jobs advertised because I thought they would have an EDP department, electronic data processing department, where I could fit in. So this is how I used to apply. Come back home every evening, open the letterbox in the house to see if there was a response, and nothing would be there. And the mother was very curious. Why is it that they continue to look at the letterbox? And I think she got a bit, worried that I must be looking for letters for some other reason. She didn't think I was looking for jobs. it went on, and I have the diary. I have sent 235 such applications. You know, a young girl, you can imagine how she would meticulously write this down, 235. No responses would come. Once in a while, there would be one response which would say, sorry, we don't have the required vacancies. We will keep it in our database. Didn't understand what it meant, but at least happy that one response came my way. Anyways, after 1 year and 235 applications, I got the job. I moved from Sonata, which was my first job, to Manhattan Associates. So this was 25 plus years ago. I will give a small story about when I was in Capgemini, which was probably 5 years ago, right? We were asked to refer fresh graduates. Internally, we were asked to refer. And Capgemini, of course, is a large organization, but still, I didn't think, what might be the number of applications we could get as referrals. And they announced we got around 50,000 applications, referrals. And I thought to myself, how does one hire 100,000, even 10,000 if one wants to hire out of this 50,000? What do you do? How do you actually sift through and pick out the relevant ones? How is one better than the other? And then, of course, I moved on to my next role, which was heading the Jobs for Her Foundation, which was to look at women and their careers, largely women on a career break. And I used to continuously tell them, look at what your differentiators are, because even that demographic is large. So in our country, in India, the demand-supply situation for this is skewed. Whatever demographic you look at, whether it's fresh graduates, lateral, women on a break, senior leadership positions, the supply is large, demand is limited. And hence, there has to be some method to the hiring, which we will get to hear from our panelists today. And for us as candidates, there has to be something that we do which will differentiate us from the rest of the world so that we get a chance to at least get to the interview table. So with that context, let me start with my first question addressed to all the panelists. Maybe Gautam can go first. We would like to know about the new age careers or the next gen careers, especially also to understand what the current hiring scene is looking like. Are organizations hiring, especially in the COVID scenario? What kinds of organizations are hiring, and what are the hiring predictions looking like? Gautam, do you want to start? You're on mute, Gautam.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for setting segue to the conversation. I think let me start a little bit with how hiring has been happening and how it's happening now, right? And I'll also bring upon what you just said. You all started off 15 years back when I got into the profession of recruiting. Probably snail mails were the best way of recruiting, because I worked at a consultancy, and we would advertise jobs in a 24-page accent newspaper, and we would get a whole lot of applications, and all of them through snail mails. Like, we would look at resumes, and of course database was files back in the day, so we would keep them in files, and we would look through those files whenever we had a particular skill. And things moved on. Okay, so we started getting the computers into our rooms, and of course Naukri started, which meant we got a lot of active candidates applying for job openings and stuff like that. So the way of recruitment really changed, right? So Naukri came in, where we got a lot of active candidates. Now slowly that trend moved, because we wanted to, like you said, there were so many of them, we wanted to choose the best. So we started looking at passive candidates, and of course the best way to do that was to get a database of people, but it was LinkedIn, where people wrote about their achievement, wrote about what they were doing in their organizations, and all of those good things were happening on LinkedIn. So that became the best way of hiring. And now it's again moved on. So a lot of organizations now are using probably AI and ML to hire, which means having a digital presence today has become quintessential. So being on LinkedIn, being on different social media platforms, and being able to talk about the work you do has become a very important part of not only just applying for jobs, but also being approached by companies for jobs, right? So I think what AI and ML tools do is they kind of crawl the net and try to get the best candidates for us. just to make it much more easy. Because when you advertise a job, you have 50,000 people, but what an AI ML will do is select the top 10 for you, and being active on social media helps for that. So I think the way we are hiring has changed, but what is happening in the new age recruitment is, post pandemic, I think there's also a lot of illumination of collaborative partnerships, right? Like you will see 3M and Ford coming together to make masks. You will see Carlsberg and you will see Novo Nordisk coming together to make sanitizers. You will see Maersk and Siemens coming together to talk about zero carbon shipping. So all of these things are happening, which means that now talent is not going to be particular to one particular organization, which means being not only on the on social media and being active, but also being able to collaborate and network starts becoming very important for the new age for the new age person who's looking out for a job. So I think the way we are looking at talent has also changed. The way we are recruiting has also changed, and that's something I would want to emphasize on here.
Thank you so much, Gautam. Of course, it is definitely something that all of us have to be aware of. No longer sitting inside houses, no longer just sitting on LinkedIn. Also, I think we have to go beyond just being there as a
Yeah.
an entity on LinkedIn. But of course, I'll let Mrinalini add to that. Is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nirja, and thanks, Gautam, for sharing that. I think very valid point that, if I have to piggyback on what Gautam said, I think the channels that we use nowadays for recruitment are very different from what they used to be a couple of years ago. Yes, like you rightly said, we started, Naukri started, I think that was the biggest breakthrough that came in. And if you look at all the different job boards which are available even now for recruitment, Naukri still has kind of the monopoly in the market. There are many more, of course. But yes, job boards did set the trend, I think, to start with. Yes, LinkedIn, of course, with the professional search and looking at hiring for more senior level people. I think from there we've also moved further right now, and like Gautam rightly said, it's very important to be out there on social media, because no longer social media is something which is used to only share your personal stuff, but you also have a lot of recruitment that's happening through social media, be it through sponsored ads or targeted ads on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You are getting that talent available. And candidates nowadays, especially if you're looking at the Gen Y or the Gen Z, they are out there. If you look at Facebook, I think primarily the population present on Facebook is between about 18 to 35 years, and that's your prime pool that you're looking at bringing on board, especially as a part of your graduate or your campus onboarding. So yes, of course. I mean, and if we're looking at the current pandemic situation, and if you're looking at what the jobs data is telling us, I think it's important to note that sectors like the entertainment or retail or travel, they've had significant losses in the current pandemic, right from about 25 to 30% loss, and these sectors count for at least about 7% of the overall tech spend. On the other hand, if you look at industries like the government, financial services, utilities, telecom, they're still booming. Not that they've not been impacted. I would say they've been less impacted, so there's still hiring which is happening in those areas as well. But yeah, I think it's important to see what are the different avenues. Check where the job postings are available for these organizations on different channels and take it from there.
Thanks, Mrinalini. It's good to know that, even in the current situation, there is hiring happening. It's definitely, a good thing to know. Gopal, would you like to add something to that?
Sure. So I think if you look at how we have evolved from the story that you just shared, Nirja, and also Gautam, what you shared, I think 20, 25 years ago, or even 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, it was all about acquiring, right? I mean, be it acquiring assets, be it acquiring wealth, I mean, it continues to evolve through everything that we used to acquire till about 10, 15 years ago, or even 8 years ago. I think then comes the entire digital era, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Zs mainly who started believing that it's no longer about acquiring stuff, it's all about experiences. And that's a huge behavioral shift that we have started seeing. And it's seen in the way products are made, products are sold, sustainability of products, longevity of products, and so on. So it's human behavior that has continued to evolve and change. And coming back to the talent acquisition as a space, again goes back to the same thing. We used to acquire talent, we used to continue to acquire talent, and in the last 5 years we have suddenly started seeing a lot of consumption of talent. When I say consumption of talent, it means do I really need to have this person for a full-time role for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? I don't know how long this person is going to stay. I don't know whether he or she does have the right skills to be able to do this role. So I would rather try and test the talent through various methods that I may have. Give him or her the flexibility to choose the terms and conditions. And I think that's where gig economy evolved. And I think so. I would say if in the last 80, 90 days that we have seen in the world evolve, focus has gone back to behaviors, and we have stopped acquiring everything that we could have pre-COVID. Um, Today, even if we have cash, we may not want to spend on buying assets or acquiring assets. We may not want to look at putting some money where we are not going to get return on investment. And I think that psyche has continued to evolve even in the way business decisions are made. Now, business doesn't have a certain future in terms of whether I will have predictability for the next 6 to 18 months, be it automotive industry, be it aviation industry, be it services industry. We are all waiting and watching to see how the world is going to unfold. While it's a good story for us in India, it may continue to be a developing story across the world where things will continue to evolve on how is human being changing his or her behavior to be able to whether he wants to acquire something or not. Reflects on even again on the talent acquisition space, whether my question would be, do I really need to acquire this talent? Now that poses a huge challenge for all the people on this side of the world where we want to be acquired. We want to be placed in particular jobs, and we'll talk a little bit more on that when we touch upon the gig economy topic. But that's where the world is shifting. To ask you a question, I think we discussed this yesterday. Is our organizations hiring? Touchwood, gladly in India, at least some of the organizations are hiring, continue to hire. But I think it's become a lot more cautious in terms of the approach. We're really becoming picky and choosy about who we want to hire, whether this person is the best. And when it comes to, as you rightly put across, abundance of supply and lack of demand, we do have a challenge which we need to work through. And I think some of it is going to get addressed in some form through the gig economy or freelancing as an option.
Thank you so much, Gopal, for telling us a little bit about that. I think it automatically takes me to my next question, and maybe Mrinalini, you can tell us about what do you think the workforce model is going to look like in the coming days. Before the coming days, before the COVID, I would definitely want to know what the industry, the recruitment side of organizations was thinking of it maybe at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, and has that thought changed now because of COVID? So when I say workforce model, comprising of full-time workforce, contract staff, freelancers, gig workers, what's that model going to be in the coming days?
Sure. And I think it's a great question, Nirja. Thanks. So I think at the beginning of 2019, I don't think anyone ever expected something like this to come through. And if you look at what the workforce model was at that time, I think it pretty much was was what it was for the last 2 or 3 years, which is basically a combination of your full-time employees, maybe a minimal percentage of contract staff, and then of course you had the freelancers and gig workers as a separate segment altogether. Now, as the pandemic has reset, has changed everything here, I think it has also reset the major work trends, and HR leaders or talent acquisition leaders will, they are now rethinking of workforce, and which has to do with both your employee planning, management, performance, your experience strategies, all of it. So I think with that, I would say from what I've seen and the couple of surveys which have been happening online, I think about 32% of organizations are already replacing full-time employees with contingent workforce as a cost saving measure. Now, with that, I think there's also going to be a lot of remote working. We're already seeing that. You no longer see employees going to the office, and it's no longer 9 to 5 model like it used to be, and that's only going to increase further. From what I understand and what I read somewhere, I think the shift is going to be almost up to 48%. Right from the end of 2020 and maybe even further until 6 months into 2021. Now, with that, even the contingent worker expansion will increase. We will see a lot of talent sharing which is happening. I'm a part of Conferi. We are supporting multiple clients of ours, so we do see that sometimes when there is a dip in the hiring for a particular client and we see it's increasing somewhere else, you will have that talent sharing happening. So I think that is how it's going to be going forward. It'll be more of a, say, 80% pay for 80% work kind of a thing. It's not going to be 100% employment. At the same time, I think with all of this, organizations are also going to be looking at a lot of data collection back end, which is maybe more of your clock in, clock out times. I know some companies were already doing it. It will probably be a lot more rigorous. There will be a lot of virtual data tracking in terms of your communication or your messengers that you're using, your emails, all of that. And of course, the focus will be also on the employee well-being and safety, especially in a situation like this. But yes, there will definitely be a shift in the overall workforce, and move more towards a contingent work force and more remote working than it was in 2019.
Okay, so that means that I get paid for how much I work, and I possibly also have to look at picking up roles based on the amount of work which
Yeah.
is there and what I can call.
And there's also from again another survey that was done which saw that when there was a poll that was done with employees to check how comfortable employees are on that, there was a study which found that employees are willing to take a 20% pay cut if they get the option of working from home throughout. So I think people are also, the thinking is changing, and people are more willing to try out working from home as an option if it's going to come with a reduced pay cut. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think automatically I would like to ask Gopal the next question. Freelance, contract staff, gig. Can you explain what the differences are? And of course, what is gig? That's something that you and I want to know.
Sure. So I think contingent workforce and freelancing always existed, and it's not something new that we have seen, right? I mean, talking about 1992 when we opened up our doors to globalization by devaluing the rupee, meant a lot of public sector organizations gave away to private sector organizations to start up, which meant a lot of public sector service employees were given chance to take a VRS, which meant that they had to do something, and they picked up something around freelancing. Similar happened in 2000 when the bubble of Y2K bursted, where we had betted so much on the entire Y2K that we had hired people for premium pricing, and suddenly when it didn't work out, you had to find a way for them to be replaced with something else around the contingent workforce. So they became freelancers, some became temporary workers, some became contingent workers. Same happened again in 2008 when we had the financial crisis. Same happened again in 2016 when demonetization, GST, and all of that happened in certain sectors. In 2020, it's no different, and I think as much abundance of supply of talent that we have, we continue to there is always a set of population that exists that continues to look at going the non or unconventional way of finding something for themselves, and they find place in freelancing or doing contingent work or being a temporary worker in a particular organization. Now, the terms may look very similar, may mean similar too, but at the end of the day, it's all about orchestrating and bringing it together through a particular platform. Erstwhile, you used to have staff augmentation services organization who used to do this for you, where they would hold the resources for you and charge you a premium for you to feel that you're not going to own. Again, the question point of acquisition of talent, right? And I think that has now evolved with Internet of Things and so much of digitization and investment on platform economy, that you are able to now orchestrate that entire experience through a platform. And a classic example is Uber, Ola, in the domestic concept and construct, and everything around the app-based services, if I may were to say so. And I think services sector, ITES are no different. There are large organizations, platform services providers like Upwork, Topcoder, Kaggle, Gig Now, from an eBay standpoint, being one of those, where I think the idea is to get the talent onto the platform and orchestrate them to give them the right particular opportunity. And I think this is just going to continue evolving, and I think it will find a way to provide people the opportunity that they need. The other side of the story is also to look at what people were going through in the last 7 to 10 years. I think every city across the world, not just in India, was going through a massive transformation because of hike in growth on jobs, as well as the real estate scenario. And I think we grew, at least for Bangalore as an example, we grew far too fast, and our infrastructure just was not able to do that, or take that. And we ended up kind of being in a scenario where we we started spending almost about 2.5 3 hours of time on travel, which was unproductive hours. And a lot of organizations already took a call to move away the workforce to give them work from home as an option. I think what is now going to happen is that working from home, remote working, and in the last 100 days that we have experienced in terms of the potential that remote working has, of course, it comes with risks, but the potential that it has and the proof that we have for the last 100 days is just going to be married together, and newer models of employment will come through, and gig will probably be one of those. And I think you should see that, as Mrinalini rightly said, the numbers are just going to grow, and we will see a lot of organizations looking to gradually shift from 100% employee model to maybe a 5 to 10% employee plus model, and eventually graduate into maybe even 70-30 or 80-20, depending on their risk appetite for themselves. And it will have a model where you will have a hybrid employment model for the organization.
Okay, I mean that's definitely a new number that I have heard. So
Yeah.
maybe
I
COVID
think
has
just to
ensured.
add to what
Yes,
Gopal said, right? While I know he stuck to the corporate, industry specifically, I think one of the biggest billion-dollar industries which has always thrived on gig has been the movie industry and the entertainment industry, because I don't think so. There are, there is a set of people who are permanent on any role. They keep moving from one project to the other. It's thrived and is making the highest number of money. So I think it proves that a lot of other industries can work that way as well.
definitely, yes. And that's what I was going to say, that, while the numbers suddenly are looking a bit scary, but probably that's the opportunity that we all need to tap on. That's something that's going to give us more opportunities than being tied to probably one organization or one kind of a role. Maybe you have different kinds of passions and interests, so you could possibly look at doing two different kinds of roles
Yeah.
altogether.
I just would like to add that point, Nirja. I think as much as it sounds scary, quote unquote, I don't think we should look at it as something to be scared of, because what's going to happen is we often have given too much of emphasis on being educated, and being having certificates and degrees, which is great. I think that's bare minimum that we need, but it the entire gig economy or platform economy is going to help you monetize that. The opportunity that it is going to allow you is immense, and it's up to you. I mean, sky's the limit if you were to be on a platform and probably are trying to monetize it. A classic example is my wife. She had a very celebrated corporate career like everyone else, and at one point of time last year she felt, okay, it's probably not going to work because we need to find a way to spend some time with the son, with our son as well. she took a call that she had to take a break. She was a trained classical singer, a Carnatic classical singer, and she started taking classes on. Uh, Before COVID, it was all in house, and students used to come at home and all of that. But now I think with COVID, everything has shifted to Zoom, and I think the potential that a remote or a platform based solution gives you is that now no longer you need to restrict yourself to 15-20 students. You can digitize the entire experience and go beyond, and borders are not going to be any concern for you, right? I mean, you can probably take students even across the border from foreign countries, and I think that's the potential that it carries. There are a lot of people, and you will not, I mean, it's not something that India has already not seen. Upwork, as an example, has a lot of people already registered on the platform. A lot of them are sitting out of India, and they are already working on a platform like that by offering them services on content development, or creative management, or even for that matter, giving them project management solutions and all of that. So I think it already exists. It's all about awareness that people need to enhance, and then probably they will not be as scared as it seems to be.
Definitely. Thanks for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to also host these series of webinars, because sitting inside a cocoon, one doesn't know, how the outside world is evolving and evolving for the better. So it's definitely heartening to hear from you all to say that, things are only getting better. Even if there's change, the change is for the better. Gautam, my next question is, in terms of hiring for a particular role, what are the different aspects that a hiring manager looks for in the current world, right? Of course, you're looking for technical skills, you may look for domain skills, but I also know that, and definitely have also hired for soft skills. So how important are the soft skills in a candidate for any kind of a role? If you had to do a percentage, or you had to kind of look at what would you be willing to say give up on? Is it technical higher and soft lesser, or whichever way? Your perspective on that one.
Yeah. So I will tell you a little bit of a story. While I think a bit of everything needed, and predominantly, I think right now, post the pandemic, soft skills also get highlighted quite a bit. I think let me tell you a little story about one of the women. I was mentoring from jobs for her, and she'd taken a break for almost 15 years. She had a corporate career. She was a software engineer, and she was going the family way. And she was, she took a break for 15 years. And I'll tell you her name as well. Her name is Abhija Nambiar. I just spoke to her prior to this call, and I told her that I'll be talking about, her story as well. So, she come to me and had a break for 15 years. Now she did not want to continue as a software engineer. She did a couple of courses in carbon footprinting and sustainability and stuff like that, and she wanted to pursue a career in that. Now, 15 years later, when she started applying, she did a couple of courses and she started applying for jobs. And since she didn't have the experience, I think nobody wanted to give her that. And she had also had a break of 15 years, so nobody wanted to give her that opportunity, right? So this was a tough situation to be in. And she kept, telling me, I've been applying, probably Nirja, exactly like you. She had a book where she had applied to multiple, roles and had not got responses from there. So we set out on a journey, and we said, okay, now we'll figure out what companies are hiring for the kind of roles that you were looking at, and let's identify key people who are going to be those decision makers in those companies. And we started following them on LinkedIn. And whenever they posted something, Abhija would go and start commenting on their post, or giving her inputs about their post. Okay, and she continued doing this for quite some time, while she tried a couple of times writing her own posts. She didn't get too many of people following her and stuff like that. But when she started following the right people and started commenting, I think they started taking notice of what she was doing. And eventually now today she's got herself a job. It's been 2 years that she got herself a job at Volvo, and she's on the sustainability department at Volvo's, and is doing really well. So I'm really proud about this story, and I keep telling it in different forums. But that really emphasizes the importance of not only networking but also the importance of soft skills and being able to collaborate and reach out to the right people. So that becomes the biggest important part of really getting a job in the market that you are in right now. So being out there and also being able to make the right comments. And you can't make a random comment and think somebody is going to reach out to you, but making the right comment. So being relevant also matters, but I think it is a mix of also the technical skills, but also right now soft skills and networking, because that's going to be very important. And today I think right now we don't, sitting at homes, we don't have the time to look through every resume and stuff like that. And we don't have, while we're not doing face-to-face interviews as much, I'm assuming that people should slowly move into video resumes to be more effective and help us, assess them even better. So these are the few things I think that need to change.
Definitely, I definitely agree, because I think, if I have flourished in the last 3-4 years, it's been due to networking, I have to say. My career of 25 years of IT versus the last 4 years, whatever I've done, I think the last 4 years is definitely much, way heavier indeed. And I also remember Apurva Purohit, you may know Apurva Purohit, who's the president of the Jagran Group and has written 2 books. She was addressing a set of girls on a webinar a couple of days back, and she said, when somebody asked her, how have you become the CEO? She said, one thing I have to say, that I never, have had a CV in my life. So I've never moved jobs with a CV. It has always been because of the reputation that I carried, and hence somebody approached me. It could have been a client, it could have been a friend, it could have been someone who met me somewhere, and that's how I've landed every job of mine. So if someone can get to a CEO level without a CVs, then I think that's absolutely more critical. I'm not denying that one doesn't have to have the basic degree and education. Of course, we need to have, because after you get into the job, that's what is going to help you. You have to use those skills to perform the job, but to definitely get a foot in the door, I think that the soft skills and networking does play a big part. Thank you, Gautam. Mrinalini, would you be able to tell us what soft skills that an organization probably looks for today?
Sure, sure. And I think Gautam touched upon a very important point, and so did you, Neerja, on the soft skill piece. I think that's the most important thing, especially now in the current situation where we're really not getting a chance to have more face-to-face discussions, and especially when we have candidates who come to meet hiring managers, or to, with the multiple rounds of interviews that they go through, you really can't evaluate that. And that's where I think it's important to touch upon the communication piece of it. The fact that you're out there, and like Gautam said, you make the right point at the right forum. That's really important. So I think for me, if you ask me, I think communication is the most important soft skill that one needs, be it verbal or written. Definitely the most important. But apart from that, I think if you have to ask me the top 5 soft skills that I would look at if I were the hiring manager and if I were to interview someone, especially in the current situation, I think I would. Of course, with respect to the fitment to the role, and even otherwise fitment to the organization, I think one I would say would be creativity. So basically, organizations are looking at people who can creatively approach problems and tasks, be it across business roles, whether it's a software engineering role or an HR role. I think it's important for someone to focus on honing your ability to bring in new ideas, especially the current situation. You have to bring that to the table, especially 2020 with everything going digital. Second thing I would say is probably persuasion skills. Leaders and hiring managers value individuals who can explain the why. So basically, if you have to advance your career, you need to brush up on your ability to effectively communicate ideas and persuade your colleagues and stakeholders. When you're in the corporate setup, it is important for you to work together along with your team members. At the same time, you should also be able to explain, like I said, the why part of it, on why is it that you're looking at the best interest to follow the lead that you're sharing. Which brings me to the third part, which is collaboration. Again, high functioning teams can accomplish much more than any individual, and teamwork always does much better than individuals, and organizations know it. So it's important that you learn how your strengths can complement those of your co-workers, your peers, your colleagues, so that you ensure that you reach a common goal. The other piece, which I would say is very relevant again today, is adaptability. So we all seeing it. I think the only constant in life is change, right? And especially in the business scenario. So basically, if you have to stand out, especially in 2020, you need to embrace this reality. Make sure that you show up with a positive attitude. Be open-minded. Be an open-minded professional. Especially in stressful situations like these, I think it's very important to ensure that you're very adaptable. And finally, something which is very close to my heart is emotional intelligence. I think that is something which a lot of people lack, something that we all need to hone. So basically, emotional intelligence is your ability to perceive, evaluate, and respond to your own emotions, and then, of course, to the emotions of the other. So which again kind of ties back to the adaptability piece. So when you're in a setup like this, stressful times, you're not able to see each other, you're working remotely, I think it's more important than ever to have that emotional intelligence. So yeah, I'd say these are the top soft skills that I can think of. There are many more, of course. You have leadership, you have a lot more, but I think these five are the key ones, if you ask me.
That's wonderful to know. That's definitely wonderful to know. And hence, I would ask Gopal to kind of tell us how is it that educational institutions and our faculty members, many of them who are attending this webinar today, they can focus and prepare the students for, all these changes that we have spoken about that's happening in the recruitment scene with the next gen careers, and the fact that soft skills are definitely going to be a top thing that a hiring manager looks for. How can the faculty and educational institutions help change or mold the students' mindset to suit these changes?
So two things. I think this is gonna have an impact on both the faculties as well as the students, right? And at the end of the day, faculties play a huge role in how students are prepared for being able to be ready for the work or workforce of the future, basically. So I think I would not add anything to what Gautam and Mrinalini already said, but I think if you sum up both of what they just said, it boils down to attitude and mindset. And I think it starts from there, where I think even as faculty members, um, the couple of things that I think we need to be aware and take cognizance of is the world outside is changing very rapidly that you and I can even think about. I think what was a particular mode of teaching in March 2020 and versus what it is today is very different. The way we evaluate students today is very different. The way people get the work done is very different. So adaptability is going to be key. And I think in the disruptive world that we're living in, or we chatted about this yesterday, Nirja, VUCA world that we live in, I think at the end
Right.
of the day, it's extremely important that we are ourselves very agile and be adaptive to the changing needs and forget needs at times, even changing situations which are beyond our control. And I think COVID has taught that very important lesson to us. So, in terms of soft skills, I think absolutely much needed today, and it boils down to the attitude that the individual carries, and what can we as faculty do to give the right set of grooming to the students is something that's extremely important for people to think through. The second element is digital skills. I think a lot of individuals, workers who relied a lot on non-tech based mode of getting the work done have learned their lessons for lifetime, I think, in the last 100 days. And I think we need to now keep asking ourselves, what more can I do? How much more do I need to do? what all can I do to upskill myself so that I'm able to be ready to take care of the workforce that I'm building for the future. I think these will be my couple of thoughts for faculties. As students, I think it's extremely important that you work on all the aspects that Gautam and Brunalini already covered. But again, as I said, mindset. You probably are going to enter a world which is going to be extremely difficult, disruptive, volatile. But are we just going to resign to the fact that, okay, this is not working out for me? Probably, I think we need to start adapting to newer ways of working things. Why only look at employment as an option? Why only look at doing something through the education and stop there? Why can't we look at upskilling? Why can't we look at reskilling? I think some of the things that we need today, no matter how fast the world changes in terms of academics and education, we didn't have any SOP on how to manage this country for last 100 years, right? But we did what we could do in the last 100 days. Sorry, 100 days. Sorry, but we did what we could do, and that is, you need to at times think outside the box. You need to be able to look at what are the ways that I will be able to survive. And if there is one statement that I can make is, look at surviving the first 12 to 18 months. Now thriving can happen, but I think your focus should now be to look at how to survive through the next 12 to 18 months. Doesn't mean that this is going to change for sure in the next 6 months. Probably COVID is going to stay for long, but I think history has proven this, that we human beings have a lot more potential than what we think of. It's only that we need to believe in ourselves to be able to work through the situation. And I think we have come through all the odds till now. Yeah, there are deaths happening. It will continue to happen, but I think how to stay um, optimistic in the current situation, and beyond all the negativity that happens, you got to stay positive yet COVID negative.
Thank you so much, Gopal. Um, I'm trying to absorb all this.
Sure.
Right, and I'm sure for someone like me who's kind of had a lot of exposure to the external world, I myself am finding it a bit difficult to digest, absorb, and then tune my mindset accordingly. It is going to be a bit tough for many others who may not have had this exposure, but I'm glad that we're having these conversations. And one of the things I definitely encourage everyone on this platform, if they've not already done, is to attend as many such sessions as possible. There's plenty available today. I know we've reached a stage where we've also got webinar fatigue, death by webinar. Jokes have been floating around, as well as the fact that it also is giving us a little bit of health hazards. But please, I would definitely encourage that overdose of information is still better than not really knowing anything about it. So thank you so much, Gopal. With that, I will have a last question to Brunalini, and then we'll definitely open it up for Q&A, and then we'll take it from there. Brunalini, one of the things I definitely want to ask and know is, what is the current scene on diversity hiring? We've heard a lot about it, and in general, what is the current scene and what kinds of diversity are we focused on? And I just thought I would also bring out this information to the group who's hearing us today.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Nirja. And yes, diversity again. When we speak about diversity, I think that when we speak specifically to India, we're talking gender diversity to a large extent. Most organizations are looking at gender diversity, which means we're looking at bringing in more women into the workforce. So yes, I think with the current scene, apart from there's definitely a lot of focus from individual organizations. Everyone's got certain targets which have been assigned for diversity hiring. Organizations are doing a lot of programs both in-house as well as participating in career fairs, career events which are for women. I'm sure faculty over here are aware of the Grace Hopper conference that happens for women in tech India every year. It happens in Bangalore, and you will see many such forums and fairs which are there for bringing women back into the workforce. I know at HPE, because they're a client of ours, we did a similar program last year called the Career Reboot program, which was basically targeting to bring women back into the workforce with a career gap, with a minimum number of years of experience, and yet with a certain amount of gap. We are, and many organizations are doing that. You're opening doors to, women who want to come back into the workforce, and of course train them further to see what is it that, how they can mold their career with that organization. But having said that, I think apart from more women, companies are also looking at hiring people with disability in the PWD category. We're looking at hiring people from the LGBTQ community, and even army veterans. There are organizations which are already doing that. The reason for that, it makes perfect business sense, and in fact companies are willing to pay even a 5% premium on hiring people from, be it whether bringing a woman into the organization or from any of the other categories of PWD or LGBTQ, and at senior management levels as well. So it may not be probably as vast as it is in the Americas, because there again you have the, diversity is again further split, inclusion is again further split under multiple categories. You have the military, veteran, and all of that. We probably don't have that at the moment in India. I think the focus is largely on women. We talk about gender diversity, but yeah, there is a lot of scope. There are a lot of events happening, so students can participate in these diversity events. Women students can definitely participate in them, and there are opportunities available. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrinalini. I will ask Rekha if there are any questions that either she
Yeah, I
has or.
had a point, if I
Yeah,
can make
please
that.
go ahead.
Sure.
Please go ahead.
So I think what Mrinalini said is absolutely right. And I think gig will continue to evolve and play a huge role in being able to tap into the diverse talent. And I think I would want to take a moment to expand the possibilities from women to even a lot more beyond. So I think I was having an interesting conversation with one of the CEOs of big CEOs, big organizations rather, to be able to look at how do we mobilize roles for people with disabilities or neurodiverse talent. And I think they had been trying a lot with large organizations, and what what was happening is there they typically go at the back of a training program that they run for these talent with disabilities, and then make them work ready, and probably have them uh, get into an employment mode with large multinationals. Now the challenge in that model is that you always are going to have a situation where organizations today are not very ready, at least in India, in terms of uh, being workplace ready or being able to have processes, policies designed for such talent. And it's going to be always a learning on both the sides. Um, Gig will play a huge role in allowing this talent to be able to get an exposure to corporate, while at the same time allow us as corporates to be able to get experience on how do we want to enhance the um, workplace, and put processes and policies together for being able to become more sustainable long term. And I think this is a classic opportunity for a lot of people who are looking at trying to explore roles within an organization without having really need to commit to it. And I think that's going to continue evolving as we speak through the gig model.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Gopal.
Nija, sorry, just to quickly add to what Gopal just said, and he touched upon a very important point on the organization's readiness. So I think that's bang on, because if you ask me, I think a lot of it, especially when you're looking at hiring people with disability, a lot of it also has to do with the kind of support that you can give as an organization. Do you have the right logistics in place? Do you have the infrastructure in place? If you ask me, I'd say hiring is probably the easiest part of it. You just bring the person on board. But then before and after, looking at the overall setup, how this individual is actually going to perform, are you giving them the kind of support that they need, is something which is really important. So yeah, that is something that I did want to call out.
Gautam, anything you want to add to this question before we open it up to other questions?
No, I think Gopal and Mrinalini have covered it all. I'm good. Let's deep dive into the questions the audience has.
Rekha, anything that you want to ask before we take the chat questions?
Sure. Yeah. Prithvi, just make sure that we are audible, because some of the participants say we are not audible. Just check.
It's been good for me.
Hey,
Yeah.
you are
I know
audible.
there have
All are
been
audible.
some few participants who've not been able to hear very well. Just please check on that
Okay.
with me.
I think you all were.
No, actually, okay. Thank you to all the panelists for taking us to a very different world. We as teachers, we are in a very I would say very ideological and idealistic place, and it's good to interact with the realist place. But at the same time, there are a few questions as a as a professional I would like to find out from you all. A couple of questions. I think anyone, all of you can respond to this. It's open for all the panelists. My first question is, we are always talking of acquiring skills, basically. Now, in this, we are also one of the uh, concerns that I, as a teacher, has is that when I am equipping my learners to skills, I am not just equipping them with skills. It is always coming from a knowledge space. So the knowledge and the skill is always associated. There is no division. There is no gap between the knowledge and the skill base. So they go hand in hand. But once they enter this, the job space, the career space, how valuable is this knowledge base? If the industries are going to focus exclusively on skills, isn't that a dangerous trend? What will happen to the knowledge base that that plays such a vital role in equipping the learner with the skills? So how do they take it forward? How do they take along with them? How do they?
I can
Um,
I can take that, Rekha ma'am,
yeah,
if that's okay. So
yeah.
absolutely, I think knowledge is very important, and I think for an organization like EY, where we don't create products, we don't have services, but I think our services are driven by knowledge at the end of the day, and I think it's a no-brainer that we need to have knowledge. But the but what's been happening in the last few years, especially since internet has become so easily accessible across the world, knowledge is available at the click of a button for a lot of people. It is the context that always is missing, and I think you can read up everything through digital media, through ebooks, through PPTs and websites. But are you going to be able to contextualize that to the real life examples and challenges? Probably not. And I think that's the evolution that we all owe it to the generation of the future, that we need to work with them to be able to give them that opportunity and exposure, right? So as I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job to be able to impart knowledge. You should continue doing that without any doubt. But I think the question that we may want to also ask ourselves is, how are we equipping ourselves to what's really happening in the industry? So giving them exposure to real life examples by having industry leaders coming over and doing guest lectures, or allowing them to take a couple of lectures, giving them the organizational perspective. Let's take an example in HR. Like in HR, we always talk about, I used to do this a couple of years ago. I used to get into in college and ask them, what do you know about HR? People will typically say recruitment. And I used to open up a slide which used to give them the entire HR life cycle, where it talks about hiring to alumni, where people didn't even know a team like compensation and benefits or total rewards existed in a corporate world. So how do we enhance that experience for them? That's extremely important for all of us to really think through and blend the academics to what's there on the books, also with what's there in the industry as a practice. One of the things that we do in EY, which is I think something we're really proud of, is we work on a badge concept, which basically tells you learn, you experience, and you contribute. When learning is all about digital consumption of courses or classroom courses, then you experience, you whatever you have learned, you experience that, and then you contribute, maybe work on a project or two, and then I think then that reinforces the entire experience for you, and then you're skilled in that particular I mean, concept. It could be digital, like agility. It could be data design thinking, data analytics, visualization, whatever be it. So we believe that the world is going to evolve into a world on not really looking at large scale uh, learnings. It will be all about micro skills, micro learnings, because our tasks or work or the nature of jobs are going to be cut down into micro tasks. And when I say micro tasks, it could be as simple as, an easiest example that I can give you is, how do we book a cab on Uber? It's just about putting that from location and to location, and click of a button, you get the cab at the home. Imagine how it used to be 10 years ago. You used to call someone, or you used to have a driver who could drive it. So the focus is now shifting towards, how do we get everything done in a micro format, which is why you have the curriculum shrinking. I mean, it's starting from school itself nowadays. With curriculum, what I learned, probably Nirja learned, what probably you learned, is no longer the same what kids at schools learn today. I think that evolution has to continue. We need to continue looking at ways to get corporates to come in and do guest lectures for you, and blend that knowledge and assimilate that, and probably work through giving them a path on digital skills and learnings which will help them.
Thank you, Gopal.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been interesting listening to you, Mr. Gopal, but at the same time, listening to you has also made me, ask this question, um, because we do have a live interaction with a lot of learners, and all our learners are not at the same,
Agree.
interest. Not, I'm not talking very BA. Somebody might possess all the skills that you have talked about, adaptability, etc., but may really not be interested in coming into this industry because of various reasons. It could be doubt about the kind of jobs that they would want to do, or it could be also the very mechanical kind of a approach and attitude that the job requires. There may be resistance for that. So what job opportunities, what kind of career opportunities are available for intelligent, interested students who are not so eager to be a part of this very exotic industry?
So I would say people who are smart, people who are highly skilled, will find their way. I think they will be smart enough to find themselves a role or start something on their own. And if you see the last 5 years of stats, and Mrinalini can probably give us more insights into it, the number of startups that we have had in India ever since we had a specific Startup India initiative is phenomenal. And I think a lot of students today passing out of colleges want to be a startup entrepreneur. um, they all bank on one idea. It's a different story that they may not be able to find themselves on that path 3 years down the line. Are they sustainable? Do they have enough to be able to sustain from a financial perspective on the ideas that they have, is a question. But smart people will find something for themselves. So we should rather probably adopt an approach of coaching versus telling people what they need to do. Because in coaching, what you need to do is give them the right information and let them choose themselves on what's right or not so right for them at the end of the day. And for that mindset to be developed, as faculty, we need to really spend a little bit additional time on trying to understand what our career potential, or what does a job in an organization like Maersk look like, or a Confery look like, or an ENY look like. As we build our own knowledge on potentials that exist for any particular course that students are doing today, I think it will widen your perspective as an educationist, and probably you will be able to give the students that point of view, and it's up to them on what career choices that they want to make. And I think that's how we should leave it at that. As I said, smart people will find something best for themselves, but you may also want to find not so smart people, or I wouldn't say not so smart, I would say relatively people who are relatively struggling to be able to find themselves in the mainstream, a bit of additional support that they may need.
Yeah, and
Just to add to probably what Gopal said, right? I think the trend is moving away from just looking for a particular skill in a employee. So I think if students are thinking that just studying one particular skill is going to get them a job, I think that's moving away. I think what is happening is we are looking for people who is a jack of all trades. Basically right now, they need to be they need to know not just the technical skill, but also be agile to learn more things, be adaptable to changes, good with soft skills. So we're looking for a jack of all trades to be able to survive, especially in the conditions that we are in right now. So that's why I also said that the lens at which we're looking at employees now is going to change drastically post-pandemic, because right now I think we are looking at more collaborative people who can network, but also have the right skills as well. So yeah, I think we're not concentrating on specific skills and specific jobs.
yeah, and if I may add to that, Dr. Rekha,
that
thanks, Gautam.
actually that's yeah, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Rekha. I was just saying that, yeah, just to add to what Gautam and Gopal already shared,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah, please continue. Please continue. Yeah.
on the knowledge piece of it, I think the knowledge bank doesn't stop once they finish their education, and I think that is something which will continue even once they join the corporate world. Like organizations like Conferry, like HPE or Maersk or ENY, they already have their own inbuilt universities. Organizations already have that. They have data banks which are available, and not just from a skill standpoint, but also on the soft skill piece of it and the knowledge piece of it. So the learning doesn't stop for grads when they enter the corporate world. It only helps them enhance, and they can take these trainings which are available, be it web based trainings or instructor led trainings. There is a lot of content available on that. Of course, a face to face is not possible at this point in time, but I think the knowledge bank is available even once they join the corporate world. So that's something which definitely they can avail. I think a bit of a flavor of the corporate world, or the organization that they want to be a part of, they also get that when they join organizations as to do their internships or apprenticeships, because there they do get a flavor of what the reality is. Studying is one piece of it, but how you actually apply that when you join the workforce is really important, and they do get a flavor of that in those 2 or 3 months of internship. So I don't think the knowledge learning part of it stops once they join. So it's going to be a constant learning, and of course they can maneuver their career from there.
Yeah, thanks so much. Actually, my concern was exactly where Mr. Gautam was talking about. A set of people who are interested will find themselves. But what will happen to that one, who refuses to, be the jack of everything because that one learner is the master of something? Then what kind of an opportunity can that learner find? That would be my next question. Is there a niche job for such learners?
So I'll just add one piece, right? So I've heard this T model, of learning, where you actually go deep into a particular area, could be technology, could be domain or whatever. But there has to be the top of the T, which is horizontal, which is the breadth is absolutely important. So you cannot, I think that is the point which is emerging from all these discussions, that you cannot just be an I and I with no top and bottom, right? It has to be a T, and the broader the top of the T is, that's how much more you are able to be employable, productive, effective, and sought after. So it is important. And I think as educationists, we have a responsibility to communicate this in a way that will have the right influence and impact on our students to say that yes, depth is important. At this stage, please do go deep, because as you get into jobs and careers, somewhere the depth does become a little more fluid. But the T is very, very important. The top of the T is important, and that is something we have to find ways to get them motivated in that and also expose them to that.
As they
I
say,
think
you need to
Dr.
be.
Rekha, to your point,
Sorry, go ahead, Gautam.
Gopal, no, so Dr. Rekha, to your point, I think if somebody is interested only in a particular skill, I think the growth, while they might get a job, the growth perspectives are going to be lesser. But I think the gig economy definitely will open up jobs for them. And I'm very sure Gopal can answer that better than me. But I feel that, thinking of what the question you asked us, I feel that if there is somebody who's interested only in a particular space, of course, while growth is going to be lesser, I just feel gig economy could be a way to operate for that person in the future.
Yeah. So I was going to say to Nirja's point, you got to be 1 inch deep and 1 mile wide in terms of your perspective and knowledge, because I think that's going to be the need of the hour as we graduate further into the complexities that we're just going to continue getting. I think there is an interesting question that's there in the chat that I would like to respond to, and it's very similar in lines of the question that you asked, Rekha ma'am. It is on my questions are regarding gig economy and freelancing. Entertainment industry has always been a part of it, but isn't it more suitable for artists or professionals who have already made name for themselves and networking? Moreover, do you think young graduates entering job market will be lost in pool? Sure, the economy is going downward, but not giving job security to the employee would make the industry more employer centric than it is right. So I would like to give an example here, right? Um, every disruption that happens, and I think if we recall how the cab industry used to operate 10 years ago, or how the automotive industry used to operate generally, we used to be huge fans of acquiring cars for ourselves and employing drivers. And then came the entire cab industry, where it used to be radio taxis, as we know, and then came in the Olas and Ubers of the world. And I think we have learned to adapt to the new ways of working. The digital assimilation, or anything to do with platform based approaches in this, is just going to make things a lot more easier to adapt. It may look very scary to begin with, but I think we human beings have learned to adapt to it, and probably grow faster and better for ourselves. Now, coming back to the specific question on job security. Now, I think I had an opportunity to have 5 interns in my team 6 months ago, and I think COVID was probably not still there. And my questions to them were, when I was doing this talk in one of the colleges, and I asked them, I was addressing a group of 100 students, and I asked them, how many of you know new gig economy? And I was really thinking that people will not raise their hands. In fact, out of the 100 students group, 35, 40 raised their hands that they knew about gig economy, which was great and heartwarming. And then I asked them the question, if you were to look at full-time jobs or jobs in general, what is it that you're looking at? And they preferred gig. And then I really got curious, because this is something that was music to my ears, given the role that I play in this organization. And their point was that we really want to get all the experience and exposure in the first 3 to 4 years of our career. So we are happy to do multiple gigs at a time. We're happy to do a new gig every 6 months, which means that all we need to do is guide them towards empowerment. Today's kids know what the job market looks like, or students know what the job market looks like. They have the exposure and the mindset to be able to do really well for themselves. And I think the element of job security in the current context probably has to be repositioned and repackaged. And the reason why I say that is my dad worked for an organization called Automobile Products of India Limited. They used to produce Lambretta scooters and Polo scooters that we all know. I think it was, I mean, more like a style statement to own one of them in the past. Uh, he worked for that organization for 42 years, and he joined the organization and when he was 16 years, probably when you pass the 10th or 11th exams then, and he retired when he was 53 or 54, and he worked there for 42 years. And I used to always wonder, when the company closed down in actually 1992, is he going to go and pick up another role for himself, a job for himself? Probably he didn't. My mom worked for Central Railways for 33 years. I don't look, and in fact, today in our organizations, I don't really find anyone staying in a particular role for more than 3 to 5 years. If you're staying, the chances that you're not able to contribute into that role today is a lot higher because you're not bringing any new perspective. Now, the challenging part of that question is, why do I need to bring a new perspective? Because at the end of the day, you want something new every day as an individual. It's again back to our behaviors that we are saying. Uh, be it mobile, you want a new one every 1 year, 2 years. Be it something to do with cars, you may want to upgrade every 5 years. So as human beings, we want newer things, upgradation every now and then. And so do as employees. We want to upskill ourselves every 3 to 5 years. So security comes on its own. The moment you come to know of this is your skill and this is how you're going to monetize the skill that you have or monetize the who you are as a person, I think that itself is a big security than really looking at security through jobs, because that's not going to sustain longer than what you think, and at least not to the tune of what my mom and dad went through for 33 years and 42 years in an organization. So I think that's what I would say. Gig will transform the way we work, but even otherwise, roles within the corporate are evolving, and I think will require you to do different things every 3 to 5 years. If you haven't experimented doing something new every 3 to 5 years, you're probably not really doing it the right way. And I think that's what I would say.
Thank you, Gopal. Rekha, can we just take a couple of questions from the chat? Meanwhile, I know that Gautam had a hard stop at 1.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gautam, for being with us. And it was awesome listening to you. I've been a fan of, whatever you speak, and Gopal and Mrinalini also, because I've been, watching all your webinars ever since. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to invite the 3 of you for this discussion. So thank you for making the time. And I know that you have to leave, so we will definitely get back to you. I hope that Musk will have some opportunities for National College, students in the coming days.
Yes, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Musk currently is hiring for a lot of interns, so any of your students looking out for roles, I'm really happy to engage. So we're looking at least 100 plus interns this year, so happy to engage with anybody who wants to reach out to me.
I'll be in touch with that. Thank you, Gautam. Mrinalini and Gopal, are you okay to stay on for 5-10 minutes just to look at some questions, or do you have something else?
I do have a hard stop in 5 minutes, so
Okay.
if that's okay.
Probably we'll take 1 or 2 of the chat questions,
Sure.
and then we'll probably close because it's very interesting, the discussion as well as the questions.
Sure is,
that
yeah.
come. Yeah. So there is a question from Harini Krishnan. Most organizations are moving towards work from home for good, or maybe for a longer period of time. For now, how important do you think is the employee engagement during these times in terms of motivation or performance, to be specific? This is a larger question, I think, not necessarily only for fresh graduates, but maybe that's also a concern from the perspective of someone who's never seen an office space in brick and mortar, and has to start working online. And I sometimes feel, when the minute I was told that kids today have to do online studies, I'm thinking, oh my God, I would have really cried my heart out if my daughter had to, just sit in front of the screen and not go to school and, miss out on all the fun. So maybe from that perspective also, you can probably tell us how organizations are really engaging online with employees.
Yep. I can take that, Neerja. So, yeah, and I think it's a great question from Harini, and it is definitely a little, uh, challenging when you're, working from home the whole time, because all said and done, when you're in an office setup, you do tend to take breaks sometimes. In fact, I feel that when we work from home, we end up working much more. We spend more time, that time we used to use to commute, especially in Bangalore, easily about 2 or 3 hours on the road just for commute. That time is also gone in working now. There is no definite time in terms of your work hours, and everybody's working around the clock. So you have pretty much meetings set up lunch hour or dinner time throughout. So I think in times like these, it's important that organizations um, also set aside some time to ensure that you engage with your employees, with your team members. Bring everyone together, maybe on a virtual call, not to cover the work piece of it, but also to check on their well-being. Is everybody doing okay? What are the stress levels we are talking about? If possible, have some kind of icebreaker sessions. We used to do this in my previous team, and I remember, because I was a part of the while I was still a part of the APAC team, we had people sitting across different locations. We had some in Singapore, one in Taiwan, one in Hong Kong. I was in India. So for us, it was pretty much only virtual. I never got the opportunity of meeting anyone face to face. So I think the way we kept ourselves engaged and motivated was to start every session with an icebreaker. We ensured that it was more interactive. We kind of made it a little light to start with, and then kind of brings in a positive effect to the rest of your team call as well. I know in the at Conferry with the APAC team, what we do is we kind of have fortnightly calls with just the core team members, and which is nothing to do about your work. We have just engaging discussions, and sometimes we even volunteer, and we put a person on the spot and say, okay, give me a recipe for a masala chai. Someone who's in India, like I was chosen for that, give me a recipe for a masala chai, or somebody else in a different region, show me how you can bake a cake, or so try and bring in a fun element to it, because sometimes you need to just switch off that whole channel of work, and make it a little more healthy and interactive and more positive, with a fun element to it, to bring out that motivation. So people should be able to look forward to something which is not just your team call. So I think that's a good way of engaging your folks. But at the same time, yeah, I think it's easier said than done, because we're all working around the clock, and there will always be one or two people who will not be available because they have a conflict. So it's just about managing that time and ensuring, at least on a Friday, set up a fun call for everyone to engage.
So I know that a lot of organizations are doing that. I think it was very hard the minute we had to suddenly switch to complete work from home, and it
Yep.
did take a while for people to adjust. But I think now things have probably gotten into a rhythm,
Yep.
and a lot of creativity in that space is also happening.
Yeah. We
Maybe
have
with
yoga
that one,
sessions that happen. Sorry,
yeah,
I was just saying, we have online yoga sessions, which one of our team leads does for his recruiters at 7 in the
right.
morning. So yeah, come up with your own creative ideas, and plan something for your team.
That's right.
Yeah.
So one last question for Gopal, and then we'll probably close the session, which is also kind of related to what we spoke. How do you engage employees? So there is a question which says, what is the psychological impact of work from home scenario for freshers? How do they handle that? And also, what kind of training will be given to the newly recruited employees during this period of the COVID? So Gopal, anything that you would like to speak on this?
Sure. So I think from a trainings perspective, I don't think it's any different for anyone, including freshers. So we continue to hire and onboard people across various experience levels virtually, and I think it is going to continue evolving as we use this as our main ways of onboarding people going forward. So I think virtual is here to stay, uh, which is a huge change management for a lot of L&D organizations. If you see where everything that they had conceptualized and designed for delivering in person in class has to now shift and evolve. And I think we continue to work through that by making it more engaging when whatever we are doing. Our onboarding plans are going through a massive revamp in terms of looking at ensuring the managers and the team members spend a lot more time in the cultural assimilation for any new joiner, for that matter, and I think with freshers that just becomes a little bit more important. uh, we were always anyways a lot more digital in terms of content for training, which I think has helped us immensely in times like these. But I think we will continue to do a lot more engagement activity with the new joiners, and I think that becomes part of our DNA. There was one more element to the question that you asked, right? How is it?
The psychological impact of
Psychological element, yeah. So I don't think we had any foresight that this will be the situation for any one of us, right? And I think it includes people like you, me, everyone on the call today. And I'll be open to say that we are all learning through this. And I think, is it easy? The answer is no. Is it uh, gonna continue to be this way? Probably yes, in the next 6 to 18 months, as we still don't know if the numbers are gonna reduce or not. And now that we know that this is going to be the new normal, I think as quick as we accept it, it's most important thing, accepting what we are going through, will we be able to find solutions to it. And I think it's impacting everybody's psychology at the end of the day, but we need to be able to come to terms with the reality and find ways to make the most out of what opportunities we are getting today. And I think that will continue to evolve.
Thank you. Rinalini, any closing comments before you leave for your next appointment for the day in terms of the topic that we've had and a lot of detailed discussion around? Basically, from the fact that we are a college and we have responsibility in terms of educating our students. So how do we mold them in the current situation?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and really happy. I'm glad that you invited me to this, Nija. I think the only thing was that I wish I had a chance to attend the previous webinars, but I'm sure you have a recording, and I'd
Yes.
love to go over those as well. But I think it was a very useful session. It was great discussion points. I love the questions that came in from Dr. Rekha as well as our participants. I think the only thing that I'd like to say is, as the economy is ramping up, colleges will need to probably reinvent themselves to meet the evolving industry and employer skill needs, and I think organizations are doing the same as well. But yeah, I will again go back to the piece that Gopal once touched upon, the upskill and the reskill piece. So as far as possible, I think it's important for students as well as folks with experience to ensure that you keep yourself abreast and updated on the skills and especially areas that you would like to specialize in, and of course more importantly the soft skill part as well. But a great discussion overall. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mrinalini.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
before
so
I
much,
hand
Mrinalini.
it over to Rekha, I just want to kind of, close because I started the story. Let me end with the story to say that I think I'm one of those, stand as evidence and proof of, whatever we've discussed today. So I had a 25-year career, and I probably belong to that kind of a student who just wanted to do her piece and go home and enjoy life, and which is what I did for the first 10 years. And of course, then I grew into leadership roles. But what I have done after 25 years, which is basically been very curious, networked extensively, built a personal brand of my own. But all my previous knowledge, my capabilities, competencies have helped me in different kinds of roles. So I went on to head a not-for-profit foundation where I have absolutely knowledge of setting up a foundation and kind of delivering on that. And I've come to work in an education space. So there is ample opportunities. I wouldn't deny that, but it is absolutely important for us to have a very open mindset and pick up the threads that we discussed today and ensure that we allow our students to also explore that, expose them to that. With that, I hand it over to Rekha.
Thank you so much. It's been a nice interaction with the panelists, and it's interesting to get to know the other side of the world, like I said, and also it's we also understand the danger of a single story, of being equipped on a single skill ability, and then the importance of a wide knowledge base, and also not merely limited to the economic traits, the trends in employability, but to explore one's own knowledge base and one's own acquisition of skills. That's so important. Thank you for giving us that perspective. On this note, I would like to give my vote of thanks formally to many people associated with webinar. throughout these webinars and throughout all the programs organized in our college. Our management, Dr. H. Ramarao, President NES, and say Honorary Secretary Professor S.N. Nagaraj Reddy have always been very encouraging, and I'm so happy to be working in this very democratic space. Thank you, sir, for encouraging us. And of course, I must thank our principal, Dr. C.B. Annapurnama, who has always been very encouraging of any idea that I take to her. She has always said, okay, Rekha, let's do this. It might be helpful to us. Let us see how best we can manage it. She has always been that support throughout this program. Thank you, ma'am, so much for being an inspiring leader. I'd also like to thank the College Council Secretary, Dr. Y.C. Kamala, who's been very encouraging again and who's time and again said, okay, this is a good program for us to do. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, so much. And I must thank Ms. Nirja Ganesh. When I approached her with the idea of webinars, she's so willingly and happily obliged. And it has been nice associating with her, discussing with her many things. It has been a new experience for me too. So thank you so much, Nirja, for being an active participant and helping us through all this. Thank you so much. And of course, the three speakers for today, wonderful having to listen to you all. It's been a very insightful discussion for all of us, involved here. Thank you both so much, ma'am, for taking time for us in your busy schedules. And I see that some of the participants have been consistently with us across the three webinars. I would like to thank each one of them for being, appreciative and encouraging us in all the three webinars. It's very encouraging, because we were also wondering when how do we manage, how do we encourage, how do we get across to people and get them to be with us. Now I know which is a very unlike the physical